is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Morning everyone, we'll get started in a few minutes, just waiting for all our attendees to arrive. So good morning everyone and welcome to our webinar this morning on hosting a webinar. This morning's webinar will be presented by myself, Siobhan Martin from the Digital Office, and my colleague Chris from Perth and Kinross Council. And Chris is the IT coordinator, so he is the webinar expert, I would say. So yeah, we'll be giving you a brief introduction into how to host a webinar for your chosen topic and audience. Our presentation will last around 20 to 25 minutes, and then as usual you'll have an opportunity to engage with us and ask any questions that you might have during our Q&A session. So today's webinar, as always, will be recorded and uploaded to our YouTube channel, so you can access it at a later date and share with your colleagues. And we'll be both happy to answer any questions and provide support if anyone may require in the future. So I'll kick off the presentation this morning. And I'll cover sort of some of the logistical parts and why we use webinars as a platform to deliver information here at the Digital Office. So yeah, we at the Digital Office tend to use webinars to present on specific topics, whether it's our deliverables from our projects or bringing together our partners to present their case studies on sort of their digital transformation journey or a specific initiative that they may be undertaking or have completed already. We feel like it's a fantastic platform for our colleagues across the digital partnership because it enables people to sort of access information and present online, you know, from their desks remotely. Or on the go, and it gives the ability to ask colleagues questions on topics they're interested in. So you don't have to, you know, travel miles across Scotland to go to specific meetings, and you can find out stuff through the webinar. So, you know, a couple of key advantages, I've already touched on them. So we feel that a lot of the key advantages are, firstly, the convenience. So again, webinars take place over the internet, so you know you're directly on your computer. There's no need to leave the office or factor in travel time. And because of this, many of us are using webinars as a time-efficient and cost-effective method of training and delivering knowledge to staff. Secondly, I would say, you know, the affordability. Besides the fact that there's no travel costs involved with attending a webinar, the price of attending a webinar is typically much lower, and actually, in fact, for us, it's free. Apart from using the software, purchasing the software, for you guys to attend, it costs absolutely nothing. So there's no complaints there. And additionally to that, multiple participants can train together. They can, you can listen together by viewing a single webinar at a single location, and again, only pay for one connection. So another one is efficiency. So a lot of webinars are designed just as a quick hour. So again, our presentation this morning lasts 20 minutes, and you can stretch up to an hour, but we usually go with the 20 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes, and then give our attendees a chance to ask questions, answer polls, answer surveys live online. And that's a bit of a data collection for us as well, in terms of getting answers to specific questions or topics that we need. And because of that short length of time, webinars pack a lot of information into them in a very short period of time. And again, it's a long-term value, because we record them, we upload them to our YouTube channel, and they're accessible to our colleagues right across the partnership to access whenever they want, and they can access a specific type of information or a case study that they are solely interested in. So yeah, it definitely does have a long-term value for both us and the whole of the partnership. And lastly, not going into every single benefit, but the main ones, it's easy to use. Registering for and attending webinars is a pretty easy process. You'll see later in the presentation. It's a registration form, a couple of quick questions to fill in, and you get the meeting straight in your diary. And it's easy to access. I think the only problems is if that the website is blocked and on your system, but it looks to us that every local authority across the partnership has access to our system, which is fantastic. So most webinar tools that we've came across, or applications that we've came across, are very easy to use and require very little additional software. So I'm just going to quickly go through preparation during the webinar and after the webinar, and I'll just cover a few key points that you would have to consider if you want to use this, if you want to use webinars as a method to communicate with your audience. So the first thing is getting the right software and tools for your needs. My first experience with webinars has been through GoToWebinar, which we're all on just now, but there is a humongous amount of software packages on the internet to download and use to present webinars, and Chris will touch on a few others later on that they use in Perth and Kinross. So not only do you need to get that software that's got the right tools, you have to get one that's obviously affordable, and ours is pretty cheap, so we're pretty happy with that. And you also have to ensure that you get the right training to ensure that you're ready to go when it's showtime. You don't want to start promoting webinars and you're not ready, you're not familiar with the system. You want to make it flow nicely, because you don't want to pose that risk of disengaging your audience and losing value for their learning, their time. Yeah, as I said, we use GoToWebinar, which has got different pricing packages available with a range of different features, and that comes down to attendee number restrictions, custom branding, custom reporting, the ability to download recording of the session, etc. So we have a sort of mid-range package here, and I would say it's very affordable for us and local authorities. So yeah, Chris will touch on another few that probably a lot of you may be familiar with already. So setting up the actual webinar. Once you're confident with the software, the next stage would just be to set up your event. So it's quite a simple process where you insert a time, a date and a description for your webinar, and also have the opportunity to customise your registration form. So you may want to ask your, for example, if we're doing an open innovation webinar, we may want to ask if the registrant has got experience in an open innovation project, and if they would be happy for us to follow up on that. So it's just a bit of an opportunity to gain a bit of data back as well. So yeah, as you can see on the screen just now, hopefully, that's just a basic registration page for us, and that's the one that you would have filled in for today. It's just keeping it nice and plain, nice and fresh, nice and simple, and not putting anybody off wanting to join us. So the next thing is using your communication channels to promote the webinar. Quite self-explanatory. We usually do this well in advance to allow people plenty of time to get registered. Using the likes of our direct mailing channels or social media. Just to gauge a bit of interest and direct people to the registration page. So during the preparation stage, there's an opportunity there to agree with your presenters whether they want to join together in a room. So if, for example, myself and Chris, we are doing it in completely different rooms today. We're doing it remotely. Chris is in Perth and I'm in Glasgow, so there's no travel costs there. And as long as we've got confident connectivity, then we should be absolutely fine. Others may choose to do it in a room altogether. So, for example, if there's more than 2 or 3 presenters, it could get slightly messy. So some people would prefer to bring everybody together, have a couple of different laptops in the room, and just do it quite simple like that. It can be a lot less stressful from experience having everybody in the same room, but it just goes down to preference. So again, going back to the benefits, that's a simple, affordable and efficient way to deliver key messages to a larger audience. This is my main thing that I would like to touch on here. A practice run through is absolutely key for webinars to ensure that everybody's hardware and software is working and everybody's clear on what they're required to do before and during the webinar. So especially when we're doing remote working, me and Chris have already done 2 testing sessions just to make sure that we're 100% happy with how everything's working. This will give everybody an on-air experience of controls and presenting and make the live webinar much less stressful. And finally, just ensuring that you've got a webinar space set up. So it's just a quiet room where you can't be distracted or have background noise, and where there's good connectivity. So again, it's good to get that room booked to do a testing session as well, to make sure, if you're stuck in a meeting room at the other side of the building, the connectivity might not be great. So it's just to double check that, everybody's happy with that and the sound is coming through great. And again, these are just to make sure that the experience for the attendees is as valuable as possible also. So during the webinar, we usually use sort of PowerPoint presentations, quite simple, but they can be in any format. So we've seen Prezi being used before as well, but it's basically just a screen sharing mode. So whatever's on my screen, you will see, and Chris demonstrates that a bit later on as well. So PowerPoint's just really for simplicity, and it seems to be the most popular program for people to use as well. So audio is projected using sort of pre-tested microphones, so I'm hoping that everybody can hear me nice and clear this morning. Again, it's simple. It's as simple as using headphones from an iPhone or a Samsung or just a general phone that's got headphones and a small microphone. They usually work pretty well. There's no fancy tech required there at all. And the organizer of the session has got the full control in the background, so an ability to mute presenters, unmute attendees, switch screen share mode. They're in full control in the back end. So if anything goes peak-tong, you know, they have to deal with it. So that's why it's good to, you know, make sure that you're confident before you even start to present webinars at all. So a couple of key things during the webinar. Again, provide clear instructions to your audience. So I hope, you know, my introduction was very brief, very basic, but it's as clear as we're going to get. And I'll touch on, you know, some of the logistics when it comes to the Q&A session as well. But you may already be familiar with the webinar hosting platform, but your learners, you know, your attendees may not be. So therefore, it's always good to just start off your webinar with that and let people know how things are going to work. And again, there may be polls and surveys, etc., which is not on today. But if we're hosting a webinar, there's a poll or a survey throughout, then you would have to make sure that your audience are aware of how to participate in that. Second one, again, touched on this slightly earlier, but always record your webinar. Ours automatically records anyway, but it's good so that you can, you know, post on, you know, your communication channels to access at a later date, and even just for you to go back and listen to your webinar and learn from your experience, learn from any of your mistakes, and make them better for the next time. Again, it's just all about making sure that the experience for your audience is as good as it can be, and you don't want people to be, you know, unclear on what's happening, and you know, you don't want to disengage at all. So and it's key to note in that recording piece as well that you need to ensure that personal data is not recorded. So if anyone's coming on and you're unmuting any of the attendees' microphones, or you're mentioning any names, etc., that, you know, personal data is not recorded at all. And that includes in the text dialogue as well. So today's webinar is slightly interactive towards the end, but one of the things I would say is to keep people engaged is provide, you know, that interactivity within the presentations through using polls, or invite audience participation as a whole. So yeah, it could be polls, it can be surveys, it can be the Q&A session at the end. And I know different software has different different options to engage your audience. So, you know, questions can be asked to capture the audience's attention as well. So you can ask questions throughout and get people to, you know, vote on them or comment on them. It just really depends on your topic and you know, how you work things. For me personally, like in the Q&A session, I tend to let the audience ask questions by typing. And that's due to just having, you know, if you're unmuting people, you know, you don't know what their microphone is going to do, whether it's going to work, whether it's not going to. You know, you can never rely on that technology if it's not been tested. Even if it has been tested, you can't rely on it. But that's what we usually do here at the Digital Office. So, you know, I'm happy to answer any questions and follow up with anyone if they've got, you know, further questions. So that's just touching on the different things that, you know, happen in the background before and during, and I'll move on to after the webinar. So, you know, closing the webinar, we usually use that as an opportunity to tell our audience about other stuff that's happening. So that might be, you know, the next webinar. It could be key information about that specific project or events that may be of interest to that audience. You know, you've got a captive audience there, so we try and use that wisely, without overloading, of course. It's also important to provide your audience with contact information. So it's highly unlikely that you're going to provide 100% of the information that people have came to listen to, and they might want to follow that up, maybe out with the Q&A session at the end. So provide that contact information, email address, website, or whatever that may be. So once the webinar is ended, our recording is usually automatically converted, and you're presented with the option to download. So we do that, and as I say, we upload that to YouTube and our Knowledge Hub channels, and these links are included in a follow-up email to our audience as well. So there may be materials, again, that are mentioned throughout the webinar. So we just summarise that in an email, put links, put documentation, and again the recording link so that people can access that or share that with their colleagues. And again, the recording, as I mentioned earlier on, it's useful to watch your webinar over and identify if you've missed any key information that can be further shared, and learn from any of your mistakes. So yeah, I've just touched on the the logistical side of things. I'm going to pass over to Chris now. He'll take you through another few of his key tools, and then we'll go back to a Q&A session at the end. So over to you, Chris.
Thank you very much, Siobhan, and good morning, everyone. And thank you very much for all of you who signed up and decided to join us. As Siobhan said right at the start, our presentation will last approximately 20 minutes, so I have minus 1 minute to cover everything. And if any of you know me, I would struggle to cover even just what I want to say in 20 minutes. So hopefully all relevant information for you. I want to give you a little bit of a background to where we were, what we did and where we are currently, but also maybe a little bit about what I'm hoping that we can start to do going forward. Excuse me. So hopefully you can all hear me okay this morning. So for ourselves, a little bit of the background. In Perth and Kinross, we have something called a Learn, Innovate, Grow ethos, and that's whereby staff give up their own time, typically over something like lunch, to deliver learning sessions on a variety of topics. But they're very traditional classroom style setups. Now we were involved in doing things like sessions on Outlook. So being able to actually go home at the end of the day and have no emails in your inbox, and I can put my hand up and say I do that, and I don't delete them all, so I'm not cheating by doing that. Things like OneNote, but equally things like presenters coming in from outside the council, but again, it was always still a very traditional classroom style setup. And in Perth and Kinross, we're quite a large geographical area, so that can often exclude people. People maybe can't come all the way into Perth for something that was kind of just being done over lunchtime. So that was kind of a real challenge, but also, the time potentially taken to organise something. I might want to deliver, a session on OneNote or Microsoft Teams or any kind of topic. I have to find a room, I have to book it, depending on what kind of session has been delivered. Do I need to look at things like catering? There's a whole host of things that go along with actually getting a traditional classroom style setup, and obviously there's a cost associated to that. So the time and organising, bringing everyone together, that travel, potentially if there's a venue hire, catering, etc. And to me, I didn't feel that was sustainable. It was definitely excluding people from learning, and that didn't sit comfortably with me at all. It would take people away from their desk for potentially a long period of time, and I thought there's got to be a way to make learning much more accessible to everyone, anywhere, anytime, which I'll touch on a little bit later, and on any device. So that that potentially could be really advantageous for us as an organisation to engage with our staff. But it's the right thing to do, and actually it just so happens to be more cost effective. I'm huge on webinars and anything that's kind of digital format. I know that at home, if I'm looking to do something, I won't change a light bulb, but I'll use YouTube. So actually, I want to exploit technology right now, and especially around some of the, if any of you have done any of the SCVO Essential Skills Framework, as an organisation, we want our staff to be comfortable and competent in using technology. So webinars are actually one of the tools that we can actually use to help get us there. So what got my synapses really firing was Skype for Business came into the organisation a couple of years ago, but the client was Link. So there was definitely a discovery phase for me there, and I thought, right, great, here we go. We've got something where I had a conference client access license. I could start to look at how can I use Skype for Business to potentially do learning sessions. I would do learning lunches, but how could I actually use technology? And because we had Skype for Business in the organisation, a way for me to potentially not spend anything at all and really hit the ground running. So there was quite a lot I had to work out, and some of the key points there with to get a really immersive, a really engaging and positive experience. I had to do quite a lot around virtual audio cables, quite a few technical steps, which really wasn't going to be sustainable going forward. The network load. So in Perth and Kinross, we're an on-premise Skype for Business at the moment. So the network load was a factor, but also around the actual storing of recordings. So whilst Skype for Business was fantastic, it would let me share a screen. It would let me have PowerPoint on screen, whilst I would be able to actually record it. I would then have to do something with that recording. So there was a few steps, and definitely the network traffic was definitely a big issue. So I thought to myself, right, well, what else is there? What could I go to look at? I didn't have any money. Which you may be in a similar position. So, whilst what we're using today is GoToMeeting, and it's an absolutely fantastic tool, I thought, right, what else is there? What assets do we currently use in the organisation that I can really sweat? And YouTube was right away my go-to, and with very minimal work, unbelievable success. I had to get a number of tools to do that. So I'm going to be able to talk a little bit about these. We'll make sure that we share links. I'll keep these names on screen, so if you're wanting to take a screenshot or take notes. Huge number of resources. Unsplash is absolutely fantastic. Use it all the time. Hundreds of thousands of images. You type in a search term, and it will find you images. All the images I've used in my slides are all taken from Unsplash. Bensound, royalty-free music. I'll talk a little bit about that when I jump in to do a quick demo of one of the tools. Canva, graphic design website. It's fantastic. I use that for doing splash screens or landing pages, and again, I'll show you that briefly. OBS Studio. So that is the software I use for actually delivering the webinar. The other good thing about OBS Studio is it is a screen recording software as well. So it's fantastic, and I'll talk a little bit about that as well. And something called Shortcut. It's not short, it is definitely shortcut video editing. And what I want to say is about the OBS and Shortcut is these tools are completely free of charge. They are open source, and what we do within Perth and Kinross Council is they are packaged and they are made available for staff to self-install on their own devices without getting in touch with the IT department. So they can go ahead and install, which is fantastic. And we do that with lots of any of our software that doesn't have any license implications or costs. We let staff do a self-install unless they're using a thin client or a terminal. So before I start to talk about some of the benefits, I wanted just to show you some of these tools and actually how I use them, because they really do make a significant difference to how I'm able to work. So let me just switch my screens. In fact, I don't actually need to choose that screen. I bear with me, apologies. So the first thing I'm going to look at is OBS Studio. So OBS Studio, here we have open on my screen, and this is what I use when I'm doing a webinar. And I would encourage anyone who's interested to know more is just to get in touch. I'm happy to do a more in-depth session with anyone who wants to learn how to use this. But this is typically a holding page for people who are coming to join into the webinar. I'm able to create a series of scenes, and within each scene, I can add some sources. So you probably won't be able to hear it, but I can have background music playing automatically. If I'm ready to go, I can put this in studio mode. I can line up my next scene, which is going to be a countdown. And if I'm right, I'm ready to go. Let's get everybody in and started. I click transition, and then on the right-hand side, it starts to count down. I can line up my next screen, and as soon as it is ready and it's done its countdown, then bingo, I'm in. And I can do quite a lot here. So if I look at what we have here, I'm just going to quickly show you adding a source. So I'm going to add in my Surface Pro camera. Let's have a look here. And now my OBS software has frozen. Typical death by them, but there we go. Right, so I can choose which camera, but what I do when I'm doing a webinar is I'll have a camera which sits on top of my monitor. So it's a much better view. And you can see there, my camera is enabled. It'll take a minute or two, so I'm going to cancel. As you can see, I am in a meeting room right now. So I want to get rid of that just now because my laptop is overheating. What I can do is I can flip between lots of different scenes. So the questions on the left-hand side is basically exactly what it sounds like, questions and answers. So I can have a camera with me down here. I can have a screen here. I can have lots of files. I can then start to wrap it up. So I can queue up all my scenes, transition across to it. I can have music playing in the background. Really, really simple software to use. And what it allows me to do is it allows me to add a semi-professional feel to the actual webinar experience. Now, to get it actually to work, so there are buttons down the right-hand side. This start streaming, I need to click that to start the video feed to go to YouTube. But the start recording does exactly what it says on the tin. So I can actually be recording the session. But one of the real benefits for us when using YouTube is the fact that for people to sign up, for people to join the lobby, if you like, for people to watch live, or for people to watch back on demand, the link is the same. I don't need to worry about recording because I'm using YouTube as my centralized repository of information. That's where I'm actually keeping all that knowledge and information. I'm going to show you, just bear with me while I now change my monitor. So here's what Ben Sound looks like. Lots of music that you can play and download, lots of different types. Here is what Canva looks like. If I scroll down, you'll be able to see here some of the webinar, and you can see how each page I've then been designing, and they're just images. They're PNG files, and all I'm doing is adding an image into Shortcut. Here is Unsplash, so I just did a search for technology, 3,250 royalty-free pictures, loads and loads of resources. And here is YouTube. So I'm using the Perth and Kinross Council have a YouTube channel, and I am looking at down the left-hand side. You should see live streaming and events. So I can schedule things in advance. If I know this time next year that I want to do a webinar, I can do a new live event, and I can actually create the details. I can choose when, and I can actually apply some advanced settings. I would happily go through all this with anyone who's interested in doing something like this. It's really, really easy to use. It's absolutely phenomenal. Now, when we're finished a webinar, because it's all been uploaded to YouTube, all that resource is there forever. So I'm going to be custodian of that data. So if I have a webinar that's about Microsoft Outlook and I know it's out of date, well, I'm going to take that video off. And we don't put our videos public, so people need to know the link to be able to actually watch our webinars. But what it allows us to do is something quite clever. We can signpost our content from multiple systems. So our e-learning tool, our intranet, our IT help desk system, which is what we have here. So if I quickly just search in here, bear with me. And if I just search for webinar, well, here are webinars. So if I go to the OneNote one, for example, this is a YouTube video. You can see that YouTube style play button. That's the channel. People can subscribe. But what I love about YouTube more than anything is I spent the time and I created that video for about an hour. I'm not going to play it because you're already listening to my voice and I wouldn't put you through that again. But what I'm able to do is I'm able to create a series of links. So these, if you look at the bottom left-hand side of the screen, you'll see that the link changes. And that's because at the end, there's an ampersand T equals, and you'll see a time value. So my video that's where are we? There's, well, 45 minutes and 35 seconds. For people who don't want to watch this whole thing for an hour, if people just want to know what is OneNote, they click on what is OneNote, and it goes straight to that point of the video. So what it does for me is, yeah, I might spend an hour doing that webinar, but actually what it's going to give me is a couple of dozen links, if not more, which is absolutely phenomenal. So we're able to create it and publish it into YouTube all automatically, and I'm able to create lots and lots of mini bite-sized pieces of information. I would definitely recommend, if you're looking to do a webinar, I would definitely recommend having someone with you, because keeping notes of these key dates or key times can actually be very, very useful. I am now going to jump back to my other screen. Just to talk a little bit more about the benefits before wrapping up. So the big thing for me is accessibility. You heard me say right at the start, Perth and Kinross, quite a large geographical area, and events that would be held in central Perth, not deliberately we're excluding people, but there was a little bit of digital exclusion there. So here's a way to potentially tackle that, and I'll talk a little bit more in detail about that shortly. Using this platform and this way of working means that the learning materials are available from any internet-enabled device. So for us as an organisation, YouTube is accessible because it's so full of resources. But it means that I could choose to watch it at any time. I could watch it later. I could be saving it into a playlist in my own YouTube account if I have my own YouTube account. What I'm able to also do is using the webinar platform and using tools like Shortcut and using tools like OBS Studio, what I can do is for the typical classroom sessions where someone is actually standing up at a board and we're actually doing a presentation, I can be using OBS Studio as well as this, the screen recording button, so we can record what's happening on screen. We can have a camera or cameras set up in the room, and we have a digital toolkit that allows staff to book these resources out. And we can be recording the presenter and participation engagement. We have microphones, or wireless ones as well, so the presenters can be wearing a microphone, so we capture all the audio. And by using the Shortcut, which is a video editing tool, we can stitch that all together So the presenters who might be doing something on health and safety or LGBTI, whatever the topic, the whole session, as in the typical classroom session, can be recorded and published and made available for anyone. And equally, like we just showed you a second ago, we can break it down into really bite-sized chunks. Now, we can cost traditional learning. Having 10 people around the room, 10 pay grades, we're in for an hour, that costs X amount of money. So we can cost all of that. Now, for Perth and Kinross Council, our webinars have been viewed more than 650 times. I did them once, and they've been viewed over 650 times. So if a typical session, had about 10 people, that's approximately 65 sessions. So that's potentially a huge saving. But actually, the way I look at it is, this is a success because we know that staff want to learn in this way. Therefore, we provide them with the content to be able to learn that way, which also allows us to be able to focus on staff who still want the classroom learning to happen. So a webinar doesn't take away or replace our traditional model of learning around the classroom, around the table. But what it means is I can focus time on those people who need that kind of support. I've got some analytical information that's available, so I can see what devices are using, are accessing the content, how often, bandwidth. Bandwidth is great with YouTube, fantastic, because for Skype for Business, if you're doing a conference call with Skype for Business, it looks at the weakest link and will optimize the content from everyone else based on the weakest link. Whereas for YouTube, if you're on 3G, you'll get slightly less optimized viewing experience. Whereas with someone with 4G or in the office using Wi-Fi or a wired connection, they'll be able to easily watch 1080p. Never do 4K. 1080p is definitely more than sufficient. Again, one link to sign up in advance. It's the same link to watch it live, and it's the same link to watch it back later. I have no network traffic. I have internet traffic, but I have no network traffic, so we're not slowing down any file servers, print servers, etc. And again, YouTube is automatically optimizing the bandwidth. That's a big thing. And for me, the huge thing is that hour-long clip can be broken down, which is huge. And you can try this on any YouTube video. Just at the end of the URL, do &T equals, and then a number, and then an M for minutes, and then a number, and an S for seconds. So that is a quick fly through from a Perth and Kinross perspective. I didn't want to go too in depth, but it's what we're doing. It's certainly working really well, and I'd kind of like to now open up to any questions.
Thanks very much, Chris. So yeah, as Chris just said, we'll give you an opportunity as the audience to ask any questions. So please use the chat box to type in anything that you want to ask either one of us, and you can also raise your hand and we can test out the microphone situation if you would like to do that as well, and we can unmute your mic. So we'll give you a couple of minutes to type anything that anyone may have, and as Chris and I both said, we would be 100% happy to follow up on anything after the webinar. If you would like any advice, any support, then please do just get in touch with us. As I said, there is absolutely hundreds of products on the market to use, so we don't want to promote anything individually, but this is what we use and what works best for us so far. So hopefully that's given you a good insight into what's available, and I've got a good insight into what Chris is doing as well today, actually quite a lot of detail on stuff that I didn't know. So thanks very much for that, Chris. And as you can see, he is the expert on the webinars. He's got that down to a T. So that was really good insight for me as well. So this webinar is actually part of our digital skills toolkit So it's part of a whole series of webinars that we've already done, and Chris kicked that off with Jackie Martin, who is no longer with us at the digital office, unfortunately, but he kicked that off, and we've also got another whole host of webinars, including sort of digital champions and transformers. And this webinar will be going into that toolkit as well. So we'll share information on that. And I just see that Jackie's actually joined to watch the webinar too. So hello, Jackie, and we hope you're doing really, really well, and we miss you.
Ooh, I'm only joking. We miss you, Jackie.
So one of the questions that's came in was sort of what webinar systems are on the market. Is my system, so GoToWebinar, the same as Perth and Kinross, and that's why you could jointly provide this webinar. So I've touched on this already slightly, but the answer is no to that. So, you know, Chris will have this software. It's very limited software that you have to download. In fact, it's the exact same software as you guys will have to download to watch this. But yeah, Chris has just joined me as an organiser, so he just sort of joins the exact same way as what an attendee would, but he comes in almost in a different panel, and he gets organiser rights in the background, so he can, you know, look after the logistical side too. So no, we're not both paying separate licenses to present this. It's, you know, it's used on mine, and we're doing this remotely. So, you know, we can give you some information on, again, some of the background information to what we're using, but in terms, I think just research is really one of the things that you would have to do to make sure that you get the right system for your needs. So I think, Chris, one of your colleagues here, which you can answer. So one of Perth and Kinross colleagues, I'm keen to look at how I can deliver and facilitate training across the region for childcare providers and potential providers. As PKC is something I can link in with you for, if I can link in with you for some support.
100%, and that goes to everyone. I've never regretted giving my my contact details. Maybe today's the first time, actually. I'm joking. Yeah, I'm happy for anyone to contact me, whether it's through Siobhan or, you know, we'll make sure to share my details. But anyone within PKC, well, you'll know how to find me. So please do get in touch. To touch on just what, and forgive me if I get the pronunciation wrong, Sepide or Sepide. About the joint way of working. So what I use at the moment doesn't allow me to do what Siobhan has done. So Siobhan has been able to make me a presenter. Now I can do that. I just have to do quite a few extra technical steps. So for something like that, what I would actually be doing is I would be using Skype for Business in conjunction with all the other tools. Because in Skype for Business, I can make somebody a presenter. I can then use my OBS software, which will do screen capturing, and I can actually choose the size of the window that's being captured, so I can make sure that I'm only capturing something via Skype for Business. So it's maybe quite a few extra steps to do that, but I still can do it via YouTube and without having to pay for my GoToWebinar. However, GoToWebinar is fantastic because it has a lot of that functionality built in. But yes, Marlon and Lynn, yeah, just you can get in touch with me directly, cwright@pkc.gov.uk. More than happy to catch up and have a Skype call or face-to-face. Everyone's welcome to come and see me if they want. Yeah, I'm just having a look at any other questions we've got in. So yeah, Lynn, give me a shout. Marlon, you're very welcome. Thank you. Hopefully it has been of use to anyone. I'm just wondering if there's any other questions at all at this time. Jackie, no, absolutely not. How dare you say, can we reuse your webinars? No, of course. Anyone who knows me, I'm a sharer. So Siobhan will be able to, what I'll do is I'll make sure that the webinars that we've done previously are shared with you all, and if they can be used, go for it. I can easily spend a little bit of time with you to show how to use our video editing tool like Shortcut to chop off the PKC bit and maybe put in a slide for your own organisations. I know that we're about to do a whole load of work around Office 365, so we'll be doing a lot in this area.
Yeah, I was just going to touch on the fact that we're doing a big piece of work around a new sort of shared Scotland National e-learning platform, and one of the things that we were exploring was sort of reusing videos, webinars, etc. that are available already. So I think we're already tried to tap into Chris's materials already, and also Shetland was one of them. And as we were saying, there's no point in doing 32 councils doing 32 different videos or e-learning packages on Office 365. Let's do it once and share it 32 times, because it's no different across the board. So that's one of the things that we're looking at the moment. So if anybody wants to get involved in that or has any other materials that could be used and shared across the partnership, that would be fantastic. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Chris, or any further comments, but we don't have any other questions. It was quite a quiet question session for a change. But as I said,
we must be doing something right, I think. Then, I mean, if there's no, I think. Again, just grateful for those of you who've actually joined us this morning. Hopefully it's kind of whetted your appetite a little bit, maybe dispelled some myths about the some fears around using webinar as one of your tools. It is a tool to have in your toolbox to help engage with staff and citizens. Morven, have you carried out any evaluation in terms of effective the tool for partners? The only thing really we've done, Morven, around evaluation is really looking at analytics. So seeing how often it's being used. I mean, what we probably could be doing is if we're doing any kind of targeted content, then we would potentially might want to follow up with a survey. And we might build, if you're an organisation who is using some of the Office 365 tools, you might do a Microsoft form that would be able to actually be the registration page, as well as collating all your survey responses and feedback. So we're not directly Morven, apart from just analytics at this time.
Yeah, I was going to say that we've had numerous positive emails and feedback from our webinars as well. So we're taking that as good news as well, and we tend to find that putting out surveys, people just don't respond to them. So it might be a case of exploring polls and surveys during the webinar as well. So that's something we definitely have to look at. But yeah, we go on analytics as well. So yeah, we definitely need to explore that a little bit more. So yeah, we've not got anything else in at the moment, and if anybody wants to follow up, then use the contact information that's on the screen, or Chris has already said his email address is cwright@pkc.gov.uk. So get in touch. We're absolutely happy to explore further and help you out. That's what we're here for. So yeah, I would like to wrap up and give a huge thanks to Chris, the expert. We love having him on, and he was absolutely fantastic. And we hope that it's been informative for you. So we will send out a further information email with the recording. So please feel free to share that across the board with your colleagues, and you can visit it at any point in time. And we will share further webinar information with you guys once we've got them scheduled in. So thanks very much, and we hope to see you again soon in the future. Thank you. Thanks, Chris.
No problem. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.